Drought is spreading across England. The East and West Midlands have just joined the North West and Yorkshire regions in entering official drought status. It's after the UK's driest spring on record, which was followed by England's warmest June on record. Let's speak to Dr. Jess Neumann, who's an Associate Professor of Hydrology at the University of Reading. Thank you very much for joining us. How unusual are the conditions that we are seeing this summer?
So they're unusual in the sense that depending on where you are in the country, the spring would have been anywhere between 90 and up to 130 years, the dry spring that you will have seen in that region. We've also then had these, recurring and repeated heat waves, which have made the water crisis a lot more tricky for people. So we've got increasing demand, we're losing more water through evaporation, just from the heat on those water surfaces, and we've just not had the rainfall. So it's kind of a combination of things coming together to create this situation.
It sounds like, pardon the phrase, but a perfect storm. What does your research tell you about the causes of where we're at right now? How much can be put down to climate change? How much can be put down to a water industry, which many would believe right now is not fit for purpose, especially when we're talking about leaks?
So you hit the nail on the head there. It is a perfect storm, and it isn't just one factor that we can sort of point at and say that's the reason we're in this situation. I've touched on the weather there and the dry conditions, and we know with climate change we're going to see more of these sort of heat waves, droughts, extreme changes of temperature, but also of rainfall. So we're going from drought potentially to floods, and that's something we've seen over the past few years. But we do have to point fingers in the direction of water companies and the government as well. We're finally coming around to the idea that we don't have enough water, that we do need to do something. So we've seen the government moving towards building more reservoirs. But our water companies, they've not been investing as heavily as they should be for the last 30 years, and we're paying the price now.
Is that going to change? Have you seen any evidence that that is going to change, and the water companies, given the conditions we're living through right now, will step up and invest and put that investment in where it is really desperately needed?
So we are seeing movement and change in the water companies, a much greater need. They're recognising and they're investing in technological solutions for fixing things like leaks, for improving the infrastructure that provides our water. But they can go further. It would be great, for example, to see customers being rewarded for bringing in things like water-saving devices. So things like dual flush toilets, different systems that allow you to capture water and reuse it rather than it just going straight down the drain. And we should be incentivized to do this rather than just having a sort of flat fee for our water.
On to the individuals, the customers there that you mentioned. We take water in this country for granted. Do we need to rethink what we think about this resource?
We do take it for granted, and I've spoken with people from sort of the Mediterranean and from America, and they paint the same picture, this idea that we are a wet and windy nation with umbrellas and lots of rainfall. And whilst we do still have those conditions, what we are seeing, as I said, is these more extremes. So we do need to change our view that perhaps water, it's not as abundant and it's not as plentiful as it always has been. And we need to be mindful of that. And we really need to think about where can we save water on an individual basis? Because lots of small actions by individuals can add up to a pretty big saving overall. And it may mean that we don't need to have more futures and not as many hosepipe bans or not as many restrictions imposed in a top-down way on us. We'd like to see people just being mindful of it, because it is changing and we're seeing it in our day-to-day lives now.
What can we do then? Give us some examples.
So if you're like me, I live in a house where it takes quite a long time for the hot water to come through. So I'm trying really hard to capture some of that water in a pan, for example, which I can use to boil the kids' pasta later on in the evening. I'm letting my lawn go brown and yellow. I am thinking about installing different dual action showers, so you don't have to have like a really heavy shower all the time. So there's lots of little things you can do. I'm also thinking, I have quite a small garden, but putting a water butt in So when that rain will inevitably come, I can capture it and my kids can use it to water with their watering cans rather than me needing to get the hosepipe out. So little things, but do make a big difference.
If we don't make a difference, if the government doesn't make a difference, if the water companies don't make a difference, what happens then?
The worst case scenario is we're going to run out of water, and there are places in the world where it's come very close to that, and they've invested heavily in technology to help with that. But on a day-to-day basis, we may get to the point where you go to your tap and there's low pressure, there's just not the water coming out, because if it's not there, then it can't be provided. But we have to think it's not just about us. We have to think of our environment, and all the water we save by not using it fundamentally is water that can stay in our rivers. It can help our wildlife. It can keep our environment much healthier. So it is something that we want to do, not just for us, but for our place we live in as well.
Dr. Jess Neumann, thank you very much for your thoughts on this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you.